Hello, Rama Rama Pupoda. Hope all are in good health, feeling great, peaceful, having a wonderful life. Now, let's go to chapter 28 Himalayas, Vashistashram, upon the precipitous rock. Now they set out on the journey, trusting solely to divine guidance. At first, a shopman pointed out the direction they had to go. They passed through several fields and then waded past the thick growth of a jungle. As they emerged from it, they came upon the bank of the Ganges. Here they met a cultivator who directed them to proceed along the river bank. At the same time, he also warned them that there was no beaten track to Vashistashram, and that without a guide who knew the route, it would not be possible for them to reach the place. The distance to be covered was over 20 miles. God was their guide. They went forward. The bank of the Ganges was strewn with big boulders, and they had to pass over these stones by jumping from one to the other. They trod on thus for about 3 miles, when they came face to face with a sloping projection of a hill or headland at the edge of the river, so here further progress was cut off. They had then to climb the mountain to their left and pass through a labyrinth of trees, shrubs, and creepers for about a mile. Then, after a short descent, they came again in sight of the river bank. While journeying over the mountain, they had to traverse through a tract called Brahmapuri, which they did not notice at the time. On the banks, they continued their journey again, skipping from boulder to boulder. They went on like this for about 2 miles. Here an accident happened which partly disabled Bhavani Shankar Rao. The jumping feat sprained his ankle, so he began to slow down. Ramcharan Das kept him company, whereas Ramdas was running in advance. Ramdas stopped at the spot where further progress was again cut off, as in the last instance, but the promontory this time was not a slope. It was an upright, precipitous rock with slight ridges on the flat surface facing the river. The mountain forming this rock was shooting straight up to a great height, so there was no means of climbing it sideways. The only route was to crawl along the brink of the rock, trusting hands and feet on the uneven forest upon the vertical surface of the menacing cliff. Down below was rushing in high current the Ganges. A slight slip from the rock meant a fall into the foaming eddies of the river. This was the situation that confronted him. After waiting for about half an hour, he was joined by two friends. The condition of Bhavani Shankar Rao's foot was bad, and he was suffering from great pain. They discovered the danger and difficulty in the way of further progress. Ram Charan Das suggested that the only alternative left was to return, and Bhavani Shankar Rao gave his silent vote in favor of the proposal. But Ramdas had to obey the will of Ram, which was that he should brave the perilous path. He told the friends of this decision. Ramcharan Das was against it and declared that it was sheer madness to venture upon an inaccessible path. Ramdas had no argument to offer. He only replied that the inner call of Ram was insistent and he must obey it, madness or no madness. While Ram Charan Das was still expostulating, three mountaineers, 2 men and 1 woman, were seen creeping along the same precipice towards them, coming from the opposite direction. After they had crossed over, Ramdas started up and was about to proceed towards the fascinating rock when the mountaineers shouted, "Beware! Don't attempt the feat because we could do it. We are hill people trained to such climbing from our childhood. Your case is different. You run a grave risk. Be advised. Don't. For God's sake, be foolhardy and throw away a life." "Swamiji," Ramcharan Das spoke again, "what the man says is perfectly right. Do please give up the idea. Ramdas, feeling amused by this talk, coolly replied, "Well, Ram, did you not observe that the feat was successfully accomplished by a woman, while God has made us men and we hesitate?" At this point, Ramcharandas flared up. His mettle was roused, and the boy retorted, "You know, for myself, I don't mind casting my lot with you. But what of Bhavani Shankar Rao? You are aware that since his foot is not right, he cannot undertake the venture." Ramdas was adamant. He was urged on from within. He could not withstand the stern command. He rushed to the precipice. His nimble body mounted the rock. His fingers held on to the slits on the rock. His toes rested on the cracks. His breath suspended, he crept on and on. A tense 10 minutes job. And he was on the other side at the top. He could see the two friends sitting on the sand on the opposite side. He now wildly beckoned them to follow him. Ramcharandas suddenly disappeared from his view. He was making the attempt. 10 minutes and Ramcharandas was beside him. But Bhavani Shankara was still where he was sitting. Surely he too would have come up had his foot been sound. Now Ramdas realized the situation. To leave Bhavani Shankara alone, maimed as he was, and that too halfway in a strange place, was not proper. He was unused to such adventures. Now turning to Ramcharandas, Ramdas said, "Ram, Bhavani Shankarrao cannot be left behind alone with a sprained foot. You ought to return to him and escort him back to Swarga Ashram. As for Ramdas, there is no retracing for him. He must proceed in search of Vashistashram. It depends upon Ram if you will ever see him again. He is going to lose himself in the bewildering maze of the Himalayan hills and forests." Ramcharandas had to retreat. He joined his companion on the other side, and both together started back to Swarga Ashram. Ramdas was now alone. It must always be understood that Ram ever kept him company. He ran on, dancing on the banks of the Ganges. He rounded the curve of the bank and rushed on for about half a mile only to meet again another headland. He looked aloft and discovered about 50 feet uphill a hollow, a wide gaping cavity in the hill. To cross the hill at the sharp edge of the river was out of question. He now ascended the slope on all fours and creeping up like a mouse came to the hollow. It was a shallow cave. On entering it, he found that he could stand erect in it. In the interior, at its roof, was a huge honeycomb. He found thousands of bees humming around their picturesque abode. The sweet music of their buzz filled the cave. He for a time listened to it in rapture. Emerging, he looked at the prospect. The giant rock to be traversed in front was very smooth and slippery. It extended over 100 yards. What was to be done? Ramdas spoke. "Ram, now it seems to be thy will that Ramdas should not visit Vashistashram. Although it was by thy will he started on this adventure, what does it matter to Ramdas if it should not be? He will return by the way he came." He felt no sense of disappointment. He climbed down to the bank of the Ganges, and turning back, he kept running close to the waterside. He had not gone 50 yards when he came upon a sight which arrested his further progress. Her human skeleton was lying before him at the edge of the waters. From its size, it appeared to be of a boy still in his teens. It was a fresh skeleton, and the natural gloss was still on the bones, except for a few patches of silk skin and hair on its skull. The rest of it was clean, stripped of all flesh. Hitherto silent, Ram now addressed Ramdas. "Ramdas, do you see the skeleton? A mere inert mass of bones? Your body too is made of the same stuff, and a similar fate awaits it. Body is a transient, perishable thing. You have no reason whatever to be proud of it. The only purpose for which it is granted to you is to utilize it for my service, until it falls off and is reduced to the same condition as this worthless skeleton." Ramdas took the lesson. Ram is the greatest teacher of the world. As occasions require, he would assume any part he chooses. He is a consummate actor and a perfect master of all arts. That's all, folks. Let's see in the next chapter. Thank you. Bye bye. Rama Rama Puppodu.